Those are the kind of discoveries that lead one to question whether they were really using the tools in the ancient toolbox or whether there was something else at work.
For hundreds of years, the stone walls of the Inca have defied explanation.
This is a separate rock from this rock, and yet they fit perfectly together. You couldn't fit even a razor blade between these two stones.
Built without iron tools, wheels, or mortar, they've stood for centuries through floods and earthquakes that destroyed everything around them. Every block fits so perfectly that modern engineers still struggle to understand how it was possible.
Granite is a very, very hard rock.
One of the most difficult materials to actually shape, to work, to cut, and yet they chose to build a city out of it.
But now, artificial intelligence has finally uncovered the truth, and what it revealed has shaken everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. The puzzle that shouldn't exist. The Inca Empire once ruled a vast stretch of South America. It covered modern-day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and parts of Chile and Argentina. Between the 1400s and early 1500s, long before the Spanish arrived, the Incas built cities, roads, and temples high in the mountains. They had no written language, no iron tools, and no machines. Yet they created monuments so precise and enduring that they continue to astonish engineers and archaeologists today. To the Incas, their architecture was more than shelter. It was a symbol of power, faith, and permanence, a declaration that their empire was built to last. Among their creations, none is more celebrated than Machu Picchu. Resting more than 7,000 feet above sea level, it seems to float between the clouds and the mountains. When explorers uncovered it in the early 1900s, they were struck not only by its beauty, but by the perfection of its design. This ancient city is made up of hundreds of terraces, temples, and stone houses that seem to grow out of the mountainside itself. Every block in its walls fits perfectly into the next, forming joints so tight that even a blade of grass cannot slide between them. Despite centuries of storms, heavy rain, and powerful earthquakes, Machu Picchu has remained largely untouched. Visitors often describe it as if the mountain and the city were carved from the same piece of stone. Just outside the ancient capital of Cusco stands another masterpiece, Sacsayhuaman. Though less known than Machu Picchu, it is perhaps even more astonishing. It is made from enormous stones, some weighing more than 200 tons. These massive blocks stand taller than most people, yet they fit together with unbelievable precision. Each stone connects to the next with curved and irregular edges that lock together like puzzle pieces. The entire structure appears alive, bending and flowing as if it were molded rather than built. Engineers have admitted that even with modern cranes and cutting tools, replicating this level of precision would be nearly impossible. Today, Machu Picchu and Sacsayhuaman draw millions of visitors each year. Tourists, scientists, and engineers all come searching for answers that have eluded the world for centuries. The stones remain perfectly silent, but their precision keeps asking the same question. How did a civilization with no machines, no written plans, and no iron tools achieve this? For decades, researchers have tried to solve the mystery using every method available, measuring, modeling, and rebuilding. But the answers have always fallen short. Each new theory seemed to create more questions than it answered. It would take something entirely new to uncover what generations of human study could not. Artificial intelligence, a tool that finally revealed answers the world was never prepared to face. The theories that couldn't explain the impossible. One of the earliest theories suggested that the Incas had discovered a chemical secret. According to reports, explorers in the 20th century claimed that certain jungle plants could soften stone. The theory proposed that Inca builders used the sap of these plants as a natural acid, melting rocks just enough to mold them by hand before they hardened again. It sounded plausible, especially when viewed against the flawless joints of the walls. Yet when scientists tested the stones at Sacsayhuaman and Machu Picchu, no residue of any kind was found. There were no containers for mixing solutions, no traces of corrosion on tools, and no mention of such a method in oral history. The theory faded quickly, leaving only curiosity in its wake. As that explanation lost credibility, another took its place. Researchers proposed that the Incas carved each block by hand through trial and error, placing one stone, checking its fit, removing it, and shaping again until the match was perfect. This idea honored human patience and discipline, and for a time, it satisfied many. But as the evidence grew, so did the doubts. The same level of precision appeared in thousands of walls spread across the Andes, all built within a few generations. If each block was shaped in isolation, there should have been inconsistencies, slight misalignments, uneven gaps, or traces of correction. Instead, every wall carried the same rhythm and uniformity, as if guided by a single invisible plan. Other proposals soon followed. Some experts suggested that the Incas created molds from compacted earth and poured ground stone mixed with water to form a primitive concrete. But excavations revealed no sign of binding agents or melted layers between the blocks. The stones were solid rock, granite, andesite, and limestone, each one quarried, carved, and polished by hand. Every logical theory reached the same dead end. It became clear that science alone could not explain what lay before them. If logic had failed, something else had to fill the silence. And when logic reached its limits, imagination took over, giving birth to myths, rumors, and stories that blurred the line between history and legend. Myths, gods, and the otherworldly builders. According to Andean mythology, the god Viracocha was the great creator, the one who shaped the world, raised the mountains, and taught humanity how to build. Some legends claim that it was Viracocha himself who placed the first stones at Cusco and commanded them to rise into walls. The perfection of the Inca masonry, locals said, was proof that the god's hands had once touched the earth. Even after centuries, many communities near Sacsayhuaman still refer to the site as the place of the god's stones. As stories of divine builders spread, others turned their attention to the stars. Ancient astronaut theories suggested that beings from beyond Earth had visited the Andes and shared advanced technology with the Incas. Television programs and online forums popularized the idea that alien machines had cut and lifted the stones using anti-gravity or energy beams. The notion captured the public imagination, but excavations revealed no trace of foreign metals, energy sources, or tools. Every artifact found was undeniably human, hand-carved, worn, and shaped through effort, not machinery. Still, the myths persisted. Some locals claimed the Inca had not built the walls at all, but had discovered them, structures left behind by a much older civilization whose knowledge had vanished. The Incas, according to this rumor, merely restored and expanded what they found, inheriting a mystery they could never fully understand. Archaeologists, however, found no evidence of earlier construction beneath the sites. Every layer pointed back to Inca origin. For generations, these myths overshadowed the Incas' true brilliance, but in recent years, a new kind of investigation began to peel back the mystery, not through legends or speculation, but through observation. Researchers returned to the ruins with fresh curiosity, determined to look at them not as relics of myth, but as living structures that might still hold their own clues. It was during these quiet studies that something unexpected began to surface. As scientists examined the walls more closely, they started noticing something strange, something that had nothing to do with sight, but with sound. The sound of the stones. When wind swept across certain Inca sites, or when footsteps echoed through their corridors, the walls responded. They resonated faintly, as if the stones themselves were alive. At first, it seemed like coincidence, but as the observations multiplied, the pattern became too consistent to ignore. According to reports, some of the walls at Sacsayhuaman produced low humming sounds when struck, or when the air pressure changed during storms. In Machu Picchu, a few chambers were found to amplify even the smallest noises, while others seemed to swallow sound completely. Engineers brought in sensitive microphones to test the phenomenon, and the recordings showed subtle vibrations that rippled through the stones whenever a sound wave hit them. The walls were not just silent spectators of the environment, they were responding to it. This discovery drew the attention of seismologists, scientists who study earthquakes and how vibrations move through the ground. If the walls could react to sound in the air, what happened when the Earth itself began to shake? Tests showed that seismic energy behaved strangely around the Inca structures. Instead of cracking or collapsing like modern concrete buildings, the walls absorbed and redirected the shock waves. The stones shifted slightly and then settled back into position, as though they were built to move with the Earth rather than against it. The discovery stunned experts. It was as if the builders had understood not just weight and pressure, but rhythm, the invisible motion of the Earth itself. Some researchers began to wonder whether the Inca builders had relied not only on visual precision, but also on sound to test their walls. According to speculation, they might have tapped the stones to listen for tonal differences, using the resonance as a guide to detect imperfections. A hollow sound would mean the fit was wrong, while a solid, even tone would confirm balance and stability. It was a technique that would require no written measurements, only intuition and an ear for harmony. If true, it meant that the Incas had developed a system of acoustic engineering centuries before it was ever documented. Reports from local guides and residents added more intrigue. Some claimed that on quiet nights, the walls at Sacsayhuaman seemed to hum faintly, as though the stones carried echoes from deep inside the earth. Others believed the sound was spiritual, a connection between the structures and the natural forces they were built to honor. Whether scientific or symbolic, the effect was real and measurable. By the early 2000s, the study of Inca acoustics had become a serious field of inquiry. Researchers from universities in Peru and abroad began using advanced recording devices to capture how the walls interacted with sound waves and tremors. They discovered that the placement of each stone affected how the structure vibrated, suggesting that every block played a specific role in maintaining balance and stability. The design was not only visual, it was musical in nature. Even with this discovery, the full explanation remained out of reach. The resonance of the stones revealed that the Incas understood balance, weight, and vibration far better than anyone expected. Yet this still did not explain how they managed to build with such uniform precision across mountains, valleys, and entire cities separated by great distances. The sound tests had shown that the structures were finely tuned, but they did not reveal the exact process the builders used to cut, move, and align millions of tons of stone with such consistency. The next step would require something beyond human senses, something that could detect patterns invisible to both eye and ear. That was when artificial intelligence entered the story. The digital eyes of science. Archaeologists, engineers, and data scientists joined forces to examine the walls using technologies far beyond traditional excavation. High-resolution drones began to scan Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, and Ollantaytambo from the air, capturing every visible detail in precise three-dimensional images. LIDAR, a laser-based scanning technology, was used to map the structures from multiple angles and distances, producing billions of individual data points. Every curve, every joint, and every tiny variation in the stones was recorded in digital form. For the first time in history, the entire Inca stone network could be studied virtually without a single rock being disturbed. When the data was compiled, the results were staggering. The sheer volume of information exceeded what any human could reasonably analyze. The digital models were so precise that even microscopic tilts and surface irregularities, smaller than a grain of sand, could be measured. The scans revealed subtle patterns within the walls, angles repeated, corners lined up with invisible geometric paths that were impossible to notice with the naked eye. Yet, despite this precision, no one could understand how these scattered alignments connected into a unified system. The data was simply too vast and complex for the human mind to process in full. This was when artificial intelligence entered the study. Using machine learning algorithms originally designed for architectural stress analysis and seismic modeling, scientists fed the entire dataset into AI programs capable of examining billions of relationships between individual points in space. The goal was to determine whether the stones followed a logical construction formula or if their perfection was merely the product of instinct and trial. The AI began its analysis by comparing the shape, weight, and orientation of each block. It identified where every stone connected with its neighbors and how pressure was distributed through those connections. In essence, it began to reconstruct the method of construction step by step. The program recognized that stones were not placed randomly. Builders appeared to have followed a deliberate sequence, beginning with a foundation of smaller stones that were shaped and positioned first to anchor the structure. These smaller pieces filled voids, absorbed stress, and provided flexibility. Then, progressively larger blocks were laid on top, each one fitted with astonishing accuracy. The surfaces were shaped by repeated grinding and checking, not by single cuts, suggesting that the builders continuously adjusted each stone on site until the fit was perfect. The AI models indicated that the stones were likely carved in cycles of placement, removal, and reworking, using simple tools combined with acute spatial memory and natural observation. As the AI continued, it found repeating geometric ratios that were identical across different sites. These ratios controlled the angle at which pressure moved through the wall, ensuring that when the ground shifted, energy dispersed evenly rather than concentrating at one point. The analysis showed that the orientation of stones followed subtle gravitational lines that corresponded with the natural slope of the land. Smaller stones were always positioned at high-stress junctions, where movement was most likely during an earthquake, allowing the structure to flex without cracking. This design acted as a living system, where each stone contributed to the stability of the whole. When the AI recreated earthquakes and heavy rainfall in simulation, the virtual walls behaved exactly like the real ones observed in Peru. They flexed slightly under pressure, absorbed the shock, and then returned to their original shape. What had seemed chaotic and unplanned now appeared to be an advanced engineering method built on an intuitive understanding of physics and geology. The AI had effectively reverse-engineered the ancient construction process and shown that every angle, curve, and interlock was intentional. Still, the deeper it analyzed, the more astonishing the discoveries became. When the AI compared walls separated by hundreds of kilometers, it found that they shared the same ratios and corner alignments down to minute measurements. These were not isolated achievements or coincidences. They were part of a standardized system that extended across the entire Inca Empire. Without written plans, the builders had somehow maintained a unified architectural language from one region to another. Experts began to debate how such consistency was possible. Some believed that Inca builders worked from memorized mathematical proportions, training apprentices through physical repetition and oral instruction. Others suggested that they used simple tools of string, light, and shadow to measure angles in relation to the sun and stars. By watching how shadows shifted across the stones at different times of day, they could align walls with perfect accuracy without any written numbers or blueprints. The AI's data supported this idea by showing alignments that matched solar and stellar paths known from Inca astronomy. These techniques combined geometry, craftsmanship, and observation into one seamless process that allowed precision without modern equipment. For the first time, the stones began to speak through data. Artificial intelligence had revealed a hidden order within what had long been seen as chaos. It proved that behind every joint and curve lay deliberate engineering decisions, made by builders who understood the natural behavior of stone, soil, and gravity better than anyone imagined. The findings answered a mystery that had stood for centuries. The walls were not random works of art. They were the result of a systematic construction process, built on memory, observation, and the mastery of natural laws. Yet even with this breakthrough, one question remained. The geometry explained how the walls survived earthquakes and centuries of erosion, but it did not explain why they were built with such obsessive precision. There was something beneath the mathematics, something deeper and older that spoke of a purpose beyond architecture. As the AI continued its analysis, it began to detect another layer of information hidden within the stones. What it found next was not related to engineering at all, and its meaning would change everything. The revelation. What was hidden beneath? When artificial intelligence finished processing the final scans, the research team expected confirmation of what they already believed. They thought the data would simply show that the Incas were master builders with incredible precision and planning. But the results revealed something else, something no one was prepared for. What the computers uncovered went beyond architecture. When AI experts combined digital maps of the Incas' greatest cities, Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, and others, they noticed something strange. The sites were not randomly placed across the landscape. When viewed together, they formed an interconnected web, as if every city had been deliberately positioned in relation to the others. The lines of alignment ran along rivers, natural cracks in the earth, and even underground water flows. It looked less like scattered settlements and more like one massive design, an ancient network stretching for hundreds of miles. At first, the researchers dismissed the connections as coincidence. But as the AI compared terrain data and geological patterns, the precision became too exact to ignore. The layout seemed intentional. Every major site lined up in a way that allowed the natural forces of the earth, pressure, movement, and vibration to flow through them like veins. The discovery was fascinating but deeply unsettling. It meant the Incas may have understood the ground beneath their feet far better than anyone had imagined. To test this theory, the team ran digital simulations. They wanted to see what would happen to the connected network during ground movement. What they saw was shocking. When they simulated tremors, the energy from the movement didn't scatter or fade away as expected. Instead, it followed the same invisible lines linking the cities, looping between them like electricity trapped in a circuit. The walls and foundations appeared to pull the energy in, hold it, and release it gradually, as though the structures were designed to absorb the shock of the earth itself. The scientists were stunned. The Inca walls didn't just survive earthquakes, they seemed to manage them. The data showed that when the ground shook, the energy didn't spread randomly or destroy the structures. Instead, it was drawn into certain areas of the walls, then redirected along hidden paths before being released slowly. It was as if the buildings could sense the movement and respond to it, guiding the force away instead of letting it tear through the city. Some experts believed this was an ancient form of seismic protection, a brilliant natural defense against the constant tremors of the region. But others saw something far more unsettling. The simulations showed that the energy wasn't just released, it was being held and circulated, trapped within the same pattern that linked the major sites together. It was as if the entire network had been built to contain the Earth's motion, not just withstand it. The Incas might not have built their cities to protect themselves. They might have been building to contain something beneath them, something they didn't want to escape. As AI dug deeper into the data, the findings became even darker. Samples from old excavations were re-examined using modern technology. Within the joints of several walls, researchers found faint traces of organic matter, material that came from once living organisms. Some said it could have been traces of plants or natural decay from centuries in the soil, but others believed it was evidence of something more disturbing. According to local legends recorded by early Spanish chroniclers, there were stories of the stone that feeds on life and of workers who vanished during construction. These tales spoke of walls that had to be made complete with offerings, including human ones. For generations, historians dismissed these accounts as myth. But now, with scientific findings that hinted at organic remains in deliberate placements, the stories no longer seemed so easy to ignore. Some experts argued that the remains might have been from accidental deaths or animals trapped during building. Yet the samples were found in precise locations, near pressure points that helped hold the structures together. This led to a chilling theory. The Incas may have believed that the life energy of a person could strengthen the structure, turning the wall into something both physical and spiritual. Their perfection, it seemed, may not have come from engineering alone, but from ritual and sacrifice. What began as an effort to understand ancient craftsmanship had turned into something far darker. The AI had uncovered signs of design, control, and possibly blood woven into the very foundations of Inca civilization. These findings forced researchers to rethink everything they believed about the empire. The Incas, it seemed, were not just builders. They were keepers of power they might have feared as much as they revered. No one could agree on what the grid truly held. Some believed it stabilized the region. Others wondered if it contained something the Incas could never fully control. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. The stones were never meant to be silent monuments. They were part of a system, alive, deliberate, and built with a purpose we are only beginning to understand. Have you ever visited the Inca walls yourself? Standing before them, it is hard not to wonder how such perfection was even possible. What do you think the Incas were truly trying to contain beneath their cities? A force of nature, or something far more dangerous? Share your thoughts in the comments below.